first time I saw someone in the window across the street, I was brushing my teeth. It was late, sometime after midnight, and I was half asleep, standing in my new apartment's tiny bathroom, letting the white noise of city traffic lull me toward bed. That's when something caught my eye in the mirror. Not movement exactly, more like a flicker. A change in the light outside the window behind me. I turned around, and there it was. A light, glowing faintly in a sixth-floor window of the building across from mine. At first I thought nothing of it. Just someone up late like me. But the longer I looked, the more I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. That low, creeping tension you can't explain, only notice. Because that building across the street, it was supposed to be empty, condemned, no power,
No tenants. No lights.
and yet there it was, a single window glowing in the dark. I didn't sleep that night, not because I thought I saw a ghost, not because I heard whispers or felt watched or anything dramatic like that. It was quieter than that, stranger. It was the way the light didn't flicker like a normal bulb, the way it didn't reflect off the glass like any light should, and the way it turned off exactly 63 minutes later. On the dot. I know because I timed it. The next night it came on again. Same time. Same window. I remember because I was eating leftover pad thai and watching TV with the volume low when it happened. Just like before, it flicked on without a flicker. Soft, yellow, steady. Again, 63 minutes. Then darkness. I started watching for it. Every night. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I even tell? I didn't know anyone in this city yet. I just moved in a few weeks prior after a rough breakup and an even rougher year. I'd found the apartment by dumb luck. Cheap, clean, close to work. The leasing agent warned me that the view wasn't much. Just an old condemned building across the street. They're supposed to tear it down eventually. I didn't care. At the time, I actually liked the quiet, the emptiness, the idea of no neighbors staring back. Funny how fast that changed. On the fourth night, I noticed something new. A figure, just a silhouette, standing perfectly still behind the curtain of that glowing window. No movement, no features, just there. And it stayed there, the entire 63 minutes. I kept telling myself it was a trick of the light, a reflection, an illusion caused by my own apartment's lamps bouncing against the glass. But I didn't turn my head. I didn't blink. I just watched, because deep down I knew I wasn't wrong. It wasn't a trick. There was someone in that window, and they were standing too still to be normal. The next night I didn't wait inside. I crossed the street. The fence surrounding the old building was half fallen and rusted. The "No trespassing" sign was sun-bleached and peeling. The gate wasn't locked, just latched shut with a twisted loop of wire. I stood at the base of the building and looked up at the window, sixth floor, third from the left. The light was on. The figure was there. I stood there a long time before something, I still don't know what, drew my attention to the side of the building. A small metal door, probably an old service entrance. It was open, just barely. I should have walked away. Instead, I walked toward it. I stepped inside. The air changed instantly, heavy, sour. The kind of damp that clings to your skin. The floors groaned under my feet as I passed through what used to be a narrow lobby, lit only by my phone's flashlight. The building was empty.
No squattes. No trash. No graffiti.
Just peeling paint and silence. I climbed the stairs, one floor at a time, until I reached the sixth. As I turned the corner to the hallway, the light in the window flicked off.
Instant.
Total. Dark. I stood frozen, my pulse loud in my ears. And that's when I heard it. A sound behind me, not from inside the building, but from across the street. From my apartment. I turned and looked out the broken hallway window. My lights were on. And in the window, standing where I should have been, was a figure. Tall. Still. Watching me. I ran. I didn't stop until I was back inside my apartment with the door bolted and every light switched on. I tried to calm down, tell myself I imagined it, tell myself that it wasn't possible. And then the doorbell rang. 3 short chimes. I live on the 6th floor of a locked building. No one can get in without buzzing. I froze, waited. then slowly, carefully, walked to the door and checked the peephole. No one. But across the hall, taped to my neighbor's door, was a piece of paper. For words, written in smudged black marker. Stop watching that window. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just sat in my living room with all the lights on, the piece of paper crumpled up beside me on the coffee table, and the blinds drawn tight. Every sound felt amplified. The groan of the pipes in the wall, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant creak of an elevator stopping on another floor. And the whole time I kept thinking the same thing. Someone was in this building. Someone who had seen me watching. The note hadn't been on my door. It was taped to my neighbors across the hall. Apartment 6C. A woman named Carla lived there. We'd only spoken once when I moved in. She offered me half a pizza because she ordered too much and I declined. She smiled, said suit yourself, and disappeared back inside. We hadn't talked since. I listened for movement through the thin walls, but her apartment was silent. At 7 a.m., I left for work early just to get out of the apartment. On the way down, I stopped by the front desk and asked if there was any kind of security camera in the hallway. The concierge, a tired-looking guy with bags under his eyes and a crossword puzzle open beside his monitor, shook his head. Only cameras are in the lobby and by the mailboxes. Why? I didn't answer. I just nodded and left. That whole day I couldn't focus. Every conversation faded in and out like a bad signal. Every time someone walked behind me, I flinched. I started checking the security app for my building on my phone during meetings. Even though I knew the hallway wasn't covered, I just kept refreshing the feed like something might suddenly pop up. When I got home that night, I knocked on Carla's door. No answer. I knocked again, more insistently this time. Nothing. I even crouched down and peeked at the crack under the door. No light. Her doormat was gone. I didn't notice that at first. Just a bare patch of tile where it used to be. I stood there for a minute, debating whether to try the knob, then quickly realized how insane that would look to anyone walking by. I went back inside. The window across the street was dark. That night, for the first time, it didn't turn on. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt this tightening, like a rubber band being pulled slowly around my chest, because something about that made it worse. Whatever this was, it was changing. The next night, the light came back on. 11:03 p.m. But it wasn't in the same window. It was one floor lower. 5th floor. 3rd window from the left. At first, I thought maybe I was wrong. But I counted the rows. Counted again.
No mistake.
And this time, the light wasn't steady. It flickered like a candle. Then it went out. After maybe 5 minutes. Then another light came on, this time in the 2nd window from the right. Same floor. It stayed on for a full hour. There were no figures this time.
No silhouettes.
Just that pale, sickly yellow glow. I took a photo of it with my phone. Zoomed in. The photo showed nothing. Just blackness. A completely dark window.
No glow.
No sign the light was on at all. I took another. Same result. And then I noticed the timestamp. 11:47 p.m. But it wasn't 11:47 yet. I checked the clock on my microwave. On my laptop. Both said 11:32. I checked the photo info again. Taken at 11:47 p.m. 15 minutes ahead. That's when the doorbell rang again. 3 quick chimes. Just like before. I didn't move. I barely breathed. I watched the peephole for what felt like 5 solid minutes before I dared to approach it. Nothing. But I opened the door anyway. The hallway was empty. Carla's door still had no mat. No sign of movement. The lights buzzed overhead like they always did. But this time, there was something on my door. A single fingerprint. Long, thin. Smudged like whoever left it had been pressing hard, dragging downward. And right beneath it, taped in the exact spot the first note had been, was another piece of paper. This one said, "You were supposed to stop." I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding so hard it felt like my vision was pulsing. My fingers felt numb as I peeled it off the door. I didn't sleep that night either, and when I left for work the next morning, Carla's door was open. Just a few inches. Just enough. Her doormat was back, but it was soaked. Water pooled at the threshold, trickling out into the hallway like it was coming from somewhere deep inside. I didn't step in. I didn't even knock. I just walked away. Later that night, when I got back home, the door was closed again. And the doormat? Gone. That was the night the noises started. Low, muffled, like something scraping behind the walls. Not in my apartment across the hall. In Carla's. I put my ear to the wall, and I swear to you, I heard whispering. Not voices, whispers, like someone trying very hard not to be heard, but failing. And that wasn't the worst part. That same night, at 3:07 a.m., I woke up with the strongest certainty I've ever felt in my life. Someone was standing outside my bedroom door. I lay perfectly still, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. There were no footsteps,
No breathing.
just a presence, like a heavy weight pushing in on the other side of the wall. When I finally got the courage to sit up and flip on the light, the bedroom door creaked open half an inch, slowly, like it had been pulled from the other side. There was no one there, but taped to the inside of the door at eye level was another piece of paper. You let her in. I stared at that note for a long time, barely breathing. You let her in. It didn't make sense. I hadn't let anyone in. I hadn't even opened the front door that night. Hadn't touched the hallway since seeing Carla's soaked doormat. I'd locked up before bed, double-checked it like I always do. I'm meticulous about that kind of thing. Always have been. But there it was. That note, stuck to the inside of my bedroom door like it had always been there. And it wasn't the paper that unsettled me most. It was the handwriting. It wasn't the same as the first two notes. Those were jagged, erratic, like someone had written in a panic or with shaking hands. This one was neater, straighter, almost careful, as if the person who wrote it wanted to make sure I understood every single word. I tore it down, hands trembling, and sat in bed the rest of the night with the lights on, every sound in the apartment making me jump. I don't think I blinked for more than a second at a time. I kept staring at the door, half expecting it to swing open again. It never did. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed answers. I wasn't going to get them sitting in my apartment, staring at a building across the street like some shut-in with a flashlight. So I did something reckless. I waited until nightfall, then crossed the street and broke in. The chain-link gate was still latched with the same twisted wire, just like the first time. I stepped through, cutting my palm a little as I pushed it open. The wound stung more than it bled, but it shook me out of the daze I'd been in all day, reminded me that this was real, that I was doing this. The side door was still ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was stale and wet, like mildew and cold metal. I clicked on the flashlight I'd brought and followed the beam through the entrance corridor. The floor creaked beneath me with every step. The walls were stripped of paint, the ceiling sagging in places. There were no signs of recent construction, no signs of maintenance.
No squatter gear. No trash.
Just emptiness, until I reached the stairwell. That's where I saw the footprints. Wet, bare feet, impossibly small, like a child's, streaked along the concrete, smudging upward on each step. They went up to the 5th floor, to the window I'd seen glowing last night. I followed them. I counted each landing out loud to steady my nerves, whispering, 2, 3. Under my breath, on the 5th floor, the air changed. It was warmer, slightly, like someone had been there just moments before. My flashlight flickered. I moved down the hall, the beam cutting through the dust and shadow, passing empty doorways, each one darker than the last. And then I saw it. The door, slightly open, 3rd from the left, the one with the window. Pushed it. It swung open silently. Inside was a narrow hallway leading into a studio apartment. Bare walls, old linoleum floors, a sink rusted with time, and in the middle of the room, a single lamp, plugged into nothing, still glowing.
No valve.
Just light, cast a strange, humming warmth, like a pulse. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw what surrounded it. Photos, hundreds of them, piled in loose, scattered stacks around the lamp. They were all of me, Some from the window of my apartment, some taken from inside my living room, my bedroom, one of me brushing my teeth, one of me sleeping, and one a Polaroid of me standing at my own front door, back turned, arms limp, and behind me in the image, a figure, a woman, pale, slouched, long black hair obscuring her face. But her hand was on my shoulder. That's when the lamp went out, and the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, flashlight shaking wildly in my hand. I was alone, or I thought I was. Then I heard it, a soft creak from the hallway, followed by the sound of something wet dragging across the floor. I backed up into the room, searching for anything I could use, any weapon. When the dragging stopped just outside the door, I held my breath. Silence. Then, slowly, something pushed the door open. No one was there, just a trail of water, leading away. I bolted. I didn't stop running until I was across the street, up the stairs, and back in my apartment. I locked every door, every window, shut every curtain, and when I turned around to drop the flashlight on the kitchen counter, I saw the new note. It was taped to my bathroom mirror. "She's in your walls now." I didn't go to work the next day. Couldn't. I called in sick, which technically wasn't a lie. I felt hollowed out, like something had burrowed into the space behind my ribs and made a nest there, feeding off every quiet second that passed. I spent the entire day walking the apartment, checking the walls, listening. I don't know what I expected to hear, whispers maybe, breathing, scratching. I pressed my ear to every surface, tapped on drywall like I was searching for a hollow cavity. Nothing, just silence, and somehow that made it worse. I kept thinking about the Polaroid, about that hand on my shoulder. I never felt it, and yet there it was, cold, bony fingers, resting on me like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life. That meant she'd been in my apartment before, maybe more than once, maybe while I slept, maybe even before the lights started. That night, I unplugged everything. My TV, the microwave, even my Wi-Fi router. It didn't matter. The light still came on in the building across the street. But now it wasn't just one window. It was every window, all 6 floors. Every single apartment glowed with that same pale yellow hue, each one identical.
No flique. No veriaschen.
Like the whole place had come alive all at once. And in every window, a figure. They weren't moving. They weren't even watching me. They were facing each other. Every one of them. 6 floors of people or things. Standing still just inches from the glass, looking inward, toward the center of the building. Like they were waiting. I shut the blinds. I couldn't bear to see it. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of something shifting inside the walls. Slow and deliberate, like a body being dragged. It wasn't muffled anymore. It was right there, maybe 2 inches of plaster away from my head. I pressed my palm to the wall behind my bed and felt a faint vibration. Rhythmic, like breathing. I got up and moved to the living room. That's when I saw her, standing just outside my apartment door, her shadow visible through the frosted glass. She didn't knock, didn't move. She just stood there, perfectly still, like she was listening. I backed away slowly, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I couldn't bring myself to get closer. Not this time. I waited in the corner until the sun came up. When I finally opened the door, shaking, bracing myself for something awful, there was nothing. No one in the hallway, no sound, but there was a smell. Wet wood, old earth, and something else I couldn't quite place. Something sharp and almost metallic. I looked down. Another note. This one was different. It wasn't taped to anything. It had been folded neatly like a letter, tucked carefully into the crease between the door and the frame. Picked it up and opened it. There were no words this time, just a drawing. It was a spiral, hand-drawn, pencil pressed hard into the paper like whoever sketched it had done it in a hurry, over and over again. The lines were uneven, desperate, but the center, the heart of the spiral, was unmistakable. It was my apartment, tiny windows sketched around it, a small black dot drawn at the center, the same spot where I sat. Right now. And beneath it, in small print like an afterthought, "You're the last light now." My stomach dropped. Across the street, the building was dark again. Every single window, except mine. I looked at my own window and saw my reflection staring back at me. Except it wasn't me. The reflection was smiling. I didn't sleep again after that. Couldn't. Not with the smile still burned into the back of my mind. That thing in the window, it looked like me, but it wasn't. The posture was wrong. The angle of the head, slightly tilted, like it was curious about something. And that smile, it wasn't even malicious. It was worse. It looked satisfied, like whatever was happening, whatever it was doing, was working. The lights in the building across the street stayed off for the rest of the week. No figures in the windows. No notes. No sounds in the walls. But my lights, no matter how many times I flipped them off, kept turning back on. I'd kill the switch, and 5 minutes later, my bedroom would be glowing again. Soft yellow, like the building across the street had crawled under my skin and started blooming from the inside. It didn't matter what I unplugged. The lamps, the bulbs, the damn breaker box. Somehow the light would always come back. But only at night, and only when I was watching. On Thursday, I went to talk to the building manager. Not about the lights, I didn't even bother, but about Carla, the neighbor from 6C, the one who hadn't opened her door since the note appeared on mine. "She moved out," he said, barely looking up from his monitor. "Couple weeks ago." I blinked. "What do you mean she moved out?" "Gave her notice. Said she had to leave for family stuff. Don't really ask questions, man. Happens all the time. She left behind a bunch of stuff." He shrugged. "Did she? Someone must have cleaned it out. Maybe maintenance. I don't know, dude. Look, I gotta..." He motioned toward his screen and waved me off. That night, I knocked on 6CS door again. No answer. I jiggled the knob, half expecting it to be locked. But it wasn't. The door creaked open an inch. I stood there for a long time before stepping inside. The apartment was completely empty. Not like someone had moved out, like no one had ever lived there at all.
No furniture. No dust.
No nail holes in the walls. Just 4 blank white rooms and the faint, lingering smell of dampness and old electricity. But one thing was there. In the middle of the living room floor, a small pile of damp papers, all of them blank, except for the top one. "She doesn't live in the other building," it read. "She lives between the walls." I dropped it and backed out of the apartment. When I got back inside my own place, every light was on, even the ones I'd unplugged. The yellow glow was stronger now, warmer, closer, and the moment I shut the door, I heard her, for the first time, a whisper, right behind me, not a word, a sound, like air escaping a sealed room. Then came the knock, not at the door, inside the wall. 3 short taps, deliberate, slow. I froze. Then another knock, this time from the wall across the room. Then another, and another, coming faster now, bouncing from wall to wall like she was circling me. I clapped my hands over my ears and backed into the kitchen. The lights dimmed, and then silence, all at once, except for the refrigerator motor. I stood there in the humming quiet, trying not to breathe, staring at the ceiling like it might open up and swallow me whole. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up the next morning on the kitchen floor, cheek pressed against the tile, neck stiff and aching, and carved into the cabinet door above me, with what looked like fingernails, were 3 words: "Let me in." That day I booked a hotel. I couldn't stay there another night, but as I packed a bag and opened my front door to leave, I stopped dead in my tracks. Taped to the inside of my door, not the hallway side, was a new note. Just 2 words. "Too late." And across the hall, in the open doorway of Carla's empty apartment, she was standing there, her head tilted, her eyes too wide, and that same quiet, satisfied smile spreading across her face. I didn't run. I should have. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to move, to slam the door, to flee, to do something. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen in my doorway, staring at her. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stood in the dark across the hall, half-shadowed in the doorway of Carla's apartment, with that unnatural smile on her face. The hallway lights buzzed faintly overhead, flickering like they were about to go out. And for a moment, I swear, it felt like the floor shifted beneath me. Not an earthquake, not a tremor, more like a breath, like the entire building exhaled. I stepped back and shut the door, locked it, deadbolted it, chained it. Then I pushed the couch in front of it. I didn't go to the hotel, didn't go anywhere. I don't know why. Maybe I already knew it wouldn't matter. Instead, I sat in the corner of my living room, lights off, eyes fixed on the front door. I stayed there all night. The knocking didn't come. The lights didn't flicker. No notes.
No whispers.
But the silence was different now. It wasn't absence. It was waiting, like the apartment was holding its breath. At some point, I drifted off. When I woke up, it was morning. Sunlight, real sunlight, was streaming through the blinds. For the first time in what felt like weeks, I felt something close to relief. I got up slowly, cautiously, and went to the front door. No notes.
No marks.
No sign she had ever been there. I opened the door and peeked into the hallway. Carla's apartment door was shut tight. It almost made me laugh. Almost. Maybe it had all been in my head. Stress. Isolation. The move. The breakup. The late nights and the flickering lights. Maybe my mind had just unraveled a little. God knows it wouldn't be the first time someone cracked living alone in a city like this. I went back inside. I took a long shower. Hot water. Steam. The mundane comforts of being human. I even turned on the TV for the first time in days, just to hear someone's voice besides my own. It helped. For a while. That night, I left all the lights on, just in case. I told myself it was temporary, just until I felt normal again. Just until I stopped flinching every time the pipes shifted in the wall or the refrigerator compressor kicked on. Just until I stopped seeing her smile when I closed my eyes. I went to bed around midnight. The yellow glow from the hallway lights bled in around the edge of my bedroom door. Felt safe in a way. Like nothing could happen if I just kept the lights on. I fell asleep almost instantly and woke up in total darkness. The lights were off. All of them. I fumbled for my phone. Dead. No response. No display. I grabbed my flashlight from the nightstand and clicked it on. Nothing. Just the sound of the switch. That's when I heard the door. Not the front door. My bedroom door. Creaked open slowly. And standing in the doorway, barely visible in the dark, was her silhouette. Tall. Thin. Hair clinging to her face like wet strands of thread. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She waited. I tried to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. My chest locked up. My body refused to respond. I just stared, and she stared back. Then she stepped inside. One slow, soundless step. Then another. I could feel the air getting colder with each movement. She reached the side of the bed, knelt, and then she crawled underneath it. I didn't move for the rest of the night. Couldn't. I stared at the ceiling, trying not to breathe too loud, trying not to think, trying not to feel her there. Under me, listening, waiting. At some point, I passed out from sheer exhaustion. When I woke, the lights were back on. The room was warm again, but there was a note on my chest, written in black ink that bled through the paper. Almost home. And beneath it, drawn in sharp, delicate lines, was a spiral. But this one was different. The center wasn't my apartment. It was me. I didn't leave my apartment that day, not even to breathe. I sat in the living room, lights blazing, blinds shut tight, the note still clenched in my hand. That spiral, the one with me at the center, it didn't feel like a threat. Felt like a promise. A map. A countdown. I didn't understand what almost home meant. Not fully. But I could feel it. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she was circling closer. Tightening the loop. And I'd already let her in. I spent hours pacing the apartment, checking the walls again. Listening. Always listening. The breathing was back. Subtle, like something pressing gently against the drywall, stretching it from the inside. I even pulled out a hammer and started knocking holes in the walls. I must have punched through 5 or 6 spots before I hit anything. The sound changed behind the wall next to the kitchen. I hit it harder. Crack, crack, hollow. Then soft, like I'd struck something that wasn't drywall. I froze. My heart thudded in my ears, drowning out every other sound. I pressed my ear to the hole I'd made. Silence. And then, from deep inside the wall, barely audible, "Come see." It was her voice, but not how she sounded in the hallway. This voice was close, intimate, like she was whispering directly into my skull. I stumbled back, dropping the hammer. That's when I realized the apartment was dark again. Every light, every bulb out. I hadn't turned them off. And then, I heard the front door unlock. I didn't unlock it. I never heard keys, never heard footsteps, but the deadbolt clicked. The chain slid loose. The handle turned, slowly, and the door creaked open. I couldn't see her. Not yet. But the darkness behind the door wasn't the darkness of a hallway. It was deeper, thicker, like a hole had opened in the world, and she was stepping through. I backed into the kitchen, heart racing, pulse shaking in my fingertips. The lights wouldn't come on. My phone was dead again. There was no way out. Then I saw the spiral again on the wall where I'd knocked the hole. It had been scratched into the plaster beneath the paint. Over and over. Dozens of them. All leading inward. All pointing to the center. Me. That's when I realized something. The apartment across the street, the lights, the woman, they weren't trying to get in. They were trying to get me to look, to see, to pay attention. And once I did, once I really saw her, I was marked, pulled in. I was the last light, just like the note had said. I was what she'd been circling toward all along. And now, she was here. I turned toward the open door, trembling. She stood just beyond the threshold. Not smiling this time, not whispering, just watching. And her eyes, they weren't empty. They were full, like she was holding something vast inside her. Something older than the building, older than me. Something that needed to live inside someone else to survive. And she had chosen me. I don't remember moving. I just remember the cold. The feeling of her fingers brushing my face. The way the air around me changed, heavier, slower, like time was thickening. And then, I woke up in my bed. Sunlight pouring through the blinds. My phone buzzed, fully charged. A message from my boss. "Hope you're feeling better. Take the rest of the week if you need it." I sat up slowly. Everything was exactly as I left it. Except the walls. The holes were gone. No cracks. No damage. No trace of anything I'd done. And the front door? Still deadbolt. Still chained. No sign it had ever been opened. I told myself it had to be a dream. Some extended breakdown. Sleep paralysis. Hallucination. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But then I saw my window. The blinds had been pulled open. And taped to the glass, facing outward, not inward, was one final note. 3 words. "Now it's yours." And across the street, in the building I thought was empty, a single light glowed on the 6th floor. 3rd window from the left. And in that window, a figure. Not her. Me. Watching. Waiting. Smiling.